Who was diagnosed in 1998 and lived through a 10-year nightmare, very similar to what many, many of you have been through yourselves. Homelessness, jails, hospitals, missing, which was the worst, the missing part. And all of us become amateur psychiatrists and amateur psychopharmacologists when we encounter this universe. This is a very serious discussion, and everyone here has had very serious things to say. So I'm going to tell a true story about my son, which is in context here. He was hospitalized and very sick, and he was about to be discharged into a program, sometimes it's called a day hospital, there's other names for it, where the van comes, picks up the patient in the morning, goes off, they get treated and come home at night, so they're not inpatient. And as it turned out, there was a time in my life I was writing op-ed columns for a big newspaper, and the day of his first visit to this day hospital, I was supposed to get interviewed on the radio for an hour from 11 to 12. So when the van came, I told my son, try to get to a radio at 11 o'clock, your dad's going to be on the radio. He said, okay, I'll do that. So I got interviewed, and a little after 12, I called over to the day hospital because it was his first day, and I was concerned. And I said, I'm Stephen Jaffe, and I'm calling to talk about my son. I said, how's he doing? And the nurse who answered said, oh, you better talk to the doctor. So obviously I was very concerned. The doctor gets on the line, and I said, well, how's my son doing today? The doctor says, he's not doing very well. I said, what's the matter? The doctor says, he's delusional. He thinks you're on the radio. I told the doctor that, look, I'm familiar with hallucinations and delusions, and I know that's a common one, but in this particular case, I really was on the radio. So this guy, this medical doctor, at that point, you would expect, oh gee, how are we to know, or we'll take that into account. There's a psychiatric term called filleted do, which is a symbiotic psychosis where two psychotic people feed the psychosis to each other. And this guy decided at that moment that I was also psychotic. And he started grilling me about the details of my radio appearance. I tell this story because my son actually tells the story now. He thinks it's funny also. But we need to have moments like this. The topic is so heavy, I thought maybe I would just throw that in there for that. I have only two more comments because I want to give everybody a chance to ask questions. I have one legal and one practical concern with Laura's Law and the way it exists. Dr. Zeller touched on the legal part of it very briefly. The legal part is when any one of us here wants to go and write a will or buy a car or even sign up for a credit card, in order to do that, we have to be legally competent to do that. People who are incompetent cannot form contracts and cannot make legal decisions for themselves or actually other people. Well, when I did these debates on Laura's Law, the opponents of them, all I heard was, I have a right to be mentally ill, I have a right to control my body, and all the rights that you hear thrown out as why AOT is not a good idea. But when I look at the world and the universe through my lawyer filter and not my family filter, I realize to exercise a right, you have to be competent to do it. Yes. And if you're not competent to do it, you don't have the right to exercise it. And what Dr. Zeller said and what Pete said is right. Sometimes we have to exercise rights for people who can't do it for themselves. And that's why I fall on the side of AOT. The practical concern I have, and I'm glad Andrea is still here, is that San Francisco's law has three prongs to it. There's three partners in the CIT team. the healthcare professional, the licensed person, the family or friend, family member or friend, and a peer. Peers are real important, but our law doesn't talk at all about who can be a peer. What do you have to do to be a peer? What criteria do you need to meet? What training do you need? And I think as this is implemented, I'm going to urge, be very careful that you don't admit to one of these teams, a peer who's going to get on the scene, and then at the last moment say, hey, wait, don't take those meds, get those handcuffs off this guy, and kind of work against the whole purpose and the intent of Laura's Law. So that is my concern.
Woo!
My last comment goes back to my rights is, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know whether a civil competency test should be applied to people when they make decisions for themselves. That's really involved. But one thing I know is I don't want people to exercise their rights to be sick and to not take medication and give them the right to die with those rights. Thank you.
Yeah.